What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, shout out to Mr. Max. All right, so Mr. Max is a content creator, and he has a lot of interesting topics on his platform. And I think it was a recent YouTube short that piqued my interest. And he was asking a question: what's the point of impeachment if nothing ever seems to happen? Because generally, the point of impeachment is to remove an official from power for crimes committed uh, or for a violation of their oath while they were in office, right? But we've never had a president actually removed from office, not via impeachment. I mean, Nixon voluntarily resigned. We've never had a president actually removed from office, and we've never had a president actually punished for supposed crimes. So what's the point? Well, honestly, this is just my opinion, right? But honestly, I look at impeachments, although there is definitely wrongdoing there in many instances. I look at the opposition party in these all five instances, because remember, Trump got impeached twice. Usually it's a witch hunt to a certain extent. And like I said, I'm not saying that there isn't something there with each president. I think some more than others. But oftentimes, the opposition party, in all instances, actually, all five instances, there is an intense dislike from the opposition party of the person that's in power in the White House. Intense dislike. And I think there's political motivations. Oftentimes, what's going on is that the opposition party is trying to remove the president from office because they don't see that person as legitimate and they just have an intense dislike for that person. Look, Andrew Johnson, who I'm not defending at all. I can't stand Andrew Johnson because when you do your research on him, he is most likely the most racist man ever to occupy the White House. He wasn't just simply a bigot. No. This man looked upon black people as subhuman animals. He's the type of person who, if there was some sort of black representation that tried to visit the White House, he would refuse to meet with them because he don't think they should sit at the table with him. That's the type of racist he was. He was horrible. Remember, this guy was the vice president under Abraham Lincoln. He wasn't even a member of the same party. He was a Democrat. As a matter of fact, in 1864, when he ran with Abraham Lincoln, they ran on something called the Union ticket. So there was an act of solidarity between the remaining Democrats who were still on the side of the Union and Republicans like Lincoln who were in the White House, who represented the White House. But Andrew Johnson was a virulent racist who opposed Reconstruction. So when he came to the White House, as I'm trying to say, he was not a member of Lincoln's party. He was a Democrat, although he was the vice president. It's the last time I think we ever had that happen either. Also, I don't think we've ever had, after that, I don't think there's ever been an occurrence where the vice president was a member of a different party than the vice president. But anyway, the radical Republicans, who is sort of the equivalency of a liberal Democrats of today, sort of, but probably they was more real about it. You know what I'm saying? They weren't just talk, they were action. They despised Andrew Johnson. And they were really looking for any reason to get him out of there. So they pounced upon when he fired Secretary of War Edward M. Stanton, who was a longtime Lincoln office appointee, and they couldn't stand one another. He fired Stanton, which at the time was a violation of something called the Tenure of Office Act. Not 10-year, but tenure. Tenure. Tenure, excuse me. And basically, Congress saw that they only, at the time, had the power to remove federal employees or federal appointed employees. So because of the violation of the Tenure of Office Act, they used that as an excuse to try to remove Andrew Johnson from office. Now, the radical Republicans had a lot of members. I can't remember the exact majority, but they had a huge majority in the Senate. And they were one vote shy of removing him from office. I want to say it was 35-19. But anyway, this is how it works. Articles of impeachment can be brought up in the House of Representatives. Okay. And these articles for impeachment can be brought up by, I think, one congressman. But usually it takes a consensus movement to really build up enough momentum to get the votes necessary to bring up articles of impeachment to seriously put the president on trial. I mean, sometimes you have people who just will bring up articles of impeachment that it's not going to go anywhere. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene bringing up an article of impeachment on Biden because, he farted or something. And she see that as a stain on the presidency or something, like that type of shit doesn't really get taken seriously. It's probably going to get no more than 1 or 2 votes, but serious articles of impeachment, if they're brought up, if they get a majority vote, I think it's just a simple majority, it'll go to the Senate for a trial. To get a conviction, it's much more difficult. You need a 2/3 majority, which means you'll need 67 votes to remove a president from office. That's never happened before. The closest we came was Andrew Johnson, who was 1 vote away from being removed from office. Now, Nixon, we all know about Watergate. Nixon most certainly would have been removed from office. He didn't have, I wouldn't be surprised if he went to trial, he wouldn't have gotten more than 11 or 12 votes. He was going to be removed from office. So he saw that. He saw that his political base had been wiped out, judging from feelers, polling senators, how they would vote. So he saw that. And he knew that when that smoking gun tape came out in late July, I think it was 1974, he knew it was over. He at that time was planning on resigning because he didn't want to go through a trial, which was going to take months and cripple the country. He was already a crippled president, already dealing with, Watergate on a full-time basis. So he resigned from the office. Now, why did he not get punished? Well, because Gerald Ford, who succeeded him as president, pardoned him. And that pretty much was the end of that. That was pretty much the end of that. Now, they did query Nixon afterwards. Once he recovered, he got sick shortly afterwards. They questioned him. And I think he had to travel. Well, it was one time where they questioned him at his residence after he recovered from the phlebitis that he had suffered from, which almost took him out back then. But once he recovered, they queried him. And I think what they were trying to do then is like, okay, Ford's pardon covers anything that he might have done in Watergate, but if they can get him and convince and get him in a lie and commit perjury, well, then they might figure, well, that's not going to cover the forged part, not going to cover anything else. So, but he got away with pretty much giving standard Nixonian answers, and they weren't able to prove anything, and nothing ever happened to him. Now, the Bill Clinton shit, that happened when I was a teenager. Honestly, and I can't stand Bill Clinton. I've never understood the reasons why he was impeached. As far as going to trial, I thought it was bull. That was a witch hunt. And this is coming from a guy who, like I said before, I can't stand the guy. Give me 1 second here. Hello? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let me have to call you back on this. Can I call you back? Can I call you back, or can you call me back a little later? Another hour. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Okay now. All right. Bye. You heard too, we're all talking on the phone, didn't you? But anyway, what the hell was I talking about? Oh yeah. So I always thought it was bullshit. So really what they were trying to do was get him for Whitewater. There really was nothing there. So this bombshell occurs that he had this affair with this woman. So all of a sudden, all these Republicans who themselves have been cheating on their wives, doing all types of disgusting things that came out years later on, these hypocrites were trying to get him for desecrating the office of the presidency and, making it like he was just running around the White House just busting nuts all over the place. And, and I didn't care because I said, okay, what does that got to do with him being president? That's his house, right? I could care less about whether he's doing something with an intern. Nobody really cared. And what's funny about it was they didn't have the votes to impeach him. And secondly, his approval rating actually soared because the American people knew it was bullshit. And like I said, this is coming from somebody that hates Bill Clinton. But that was one time I supported him. I knew that was a witch hunt, and most American people thought it was a witch hunt. Now with Trump, I believe the first time he was impeached, it was because they found that he was trying to get Ukraine to air some dirty laundry about Joe Biden, who he was going to run for president against. So the crime being that you're trying to tap a foreign official to put out dirt in a political election. You know what I'm saying? So he was impeached for that. But as partisan as Washington is, and as bitterly divided as Washington is, they didn't have the votes to impeach him. So then we know about toward the end of his first term, we had, of course, the grand insurrection, which was nothing but a damn great riot. And they tried to impeach him, and they did impeach him for that. Matter of fact, the trial went after his term, and they just didn't have the votes because Trump Republicans, it don't matter what he does. The guy literally said, I could, unalive somebody in the middle of what he said? The middle of Times Square, and nothing's going to happen to me. And he's really not lying about that. No matter what he does, Trump was still going to get 40 to 45 votes not to convict, no matter what he does. So he didn't have the votes. And that's pretty much what's going to happen. Now, I think in the event that we ever did have a president who was convicted and removed from office, I don't think they're still going to be punished, because when you look at it, the highest ranking official in this country ever to be punished for crimes was former Speaker of the House, Dennis Hastert. Remember Dennis Hastert? I think he came after Newt Gingrich resigned because of the ethics violations dealing with his book and all that. I think Dennis Hastert diddled with some underagers, if I remember correctly. And I don't think he's in prison anymore. But that's the highest ranked person. I just don't. It's a reason why it's considered a good old boys club. They protect one another. Now, I'll give you an example I'm talking about. Bob Menendez, who was the former senator from New Jersey, was a Democrat. If you look at the stuff that he was accused of doing and being part of and what he was involved with, you have to wonder, why in the world was he not talked about? Well, part of it is his party affiliation. And that's why I talk often about the media bias when it comes to party affiliation. Most of the media, 85% of the media, runs liberal or Democratic. So my thing is, put all of them on blast. Not just the ones who got R's behind their names. And Fox News, do the same thing. Don't just put the ones who got D's behind their name on blast. Put all of them on blast. But the presidents, almost nothing happens to them. As a matter of fact, if you look at Nixon and Johnson, Lyndon Johnson, the worst things they've ever done are stuff that they don't even get reported. You know, like literally stealing gold from the Treasury Department. Well, not the Treasury Department, but what do you call it? Forts. Especially Johnson. You know. And then Nixon more likely committed treason during the 1968 presidential election. But you know, it is what it is. We all know about Bill Clinton and the Clinton crime syndicate and the things they've done, and the bodies, and there's so many things that don't get talked about by the mainstream media. You know, like George H.W. Bush and that prosecutor that was investigating him and his link to Iran-Contra, and just supposedly when he found some very vital evidence, his plane blows up in an Iowa cornfield, over an Iowa cornfield, and people said like a missile hit the damn plane. But you know, hey, these things don't get talked about because the media is instructed not to talk about these things. No, they're going to talk about, you know, whether Britney Spears is losing her mind, or whether Wendy Williams is losing her mind, or, you know, who 50 Cent beefing with. They're going to talk about the more important things in society. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.